Hey, I got a little time this afternoon just goofing and had people ask about doing some kind of a rig tour or whatever on the Superduty Service Truck. So I'll shoot some video of it. We'll see how it turns out. This is a 2014 F-250. I got it brand new. I traded a 2010 GMC 2500 for it. And this truck has undoubtedly been the best truck I've ever owned. Been a few things done to it, but it's never let me down. It's never let me stranded. Even when I have had a problem, it was something like, hey, I need a little attention, and then you can get to it when you get around to it. You can see I got the Knapheide service body on here, and I guess something that a lot of people wouldn't realize if I didn't point it out is, since I bought this Knapheide service body for a GMC truck, that's actually a GMC Knapheide fender. See how it's shaped like a GMC fender? Now a Ford is a full radius. So that's a funny thing where you can get a full radius fender that's shaped more like that and put on here, and obviously that would match better. Not that I would change it just for something like that, but I'm just saying that's something interesting. One of the things that a lot of people have asked me about when they see this is they say, well, that's something you made there, and it absolutely is. And this was actually the 4th or 5th try that it took me to get this truck to take fuel. And if you're familiar with these, you know they come with an aluminum piece where your gas cap is back kind of inset inside the bed, and this truck wouldn't take fuel that way. And that's something I've run into forever. I mean, flatbeds, any kind of bed that you change from the factory bed, sometimes you run into issues where they won't take fuel like a factory bed. You go to put gas in it and it just clicks, and the tank's damn near empty, but you can't get it to go. And on this truck, I changed the way the filler neck was several times, did things to change the angle, made sure it was venting all right. I did a lot of stuff. And finally, I realized that another thing I could try would be to come out, because, see, by this coming out a little ways from the fender, it allowed me to go up. And what I decided to do was I made it as far out and as far up as I could get it and still open that toolbox. And it takes fuel like that okay now. So that was something that I had to do. And I decided to buy this Knapheide bed. If you do that, as far as welders are concerned, and a lot of other people you run into, rig hands and stuff, they're like, why didn't you build your bed? I thought you was a welder. This bed has 6 boxes that lock and unlock with the same key. It has a lot of storage, and it weighs less than 950 pounds. I cannot build a bed to compete with that right there. This bed has the storage it has, and it's as light as it is because of the way that, these beds are computer designed. The way this door is bent and folded from this light gauge metal, as big as that door is, if you took that thing off there, you could throw it like a Frisbee. It's so light. And, maybe you don't want your bed that light. I see welders driving around all the time, guys that's got, they got a welding machine in there that's diesel and it weighs a ton. And then they got a bed on their truck that weighs probably 2,500 to 3,500 pounds just for the bed alone. They got duals on there. I see them all the time. And they've got a welding machine, a torch, some grinders, and some, like one box full of tools. That ain't me. I want to haul tools and materials. I don't want to haul a 2,500 pound bed. And that would, to me, the way a lot of guys are rigged up, it completely wastes the whole idea that they even have a dually, because they have so much worthless weight on their truck with that kind of bed. And their trucks, they got a big dually and a big heavy bed and a big heavy welder, but they ain't even got somewhere to put a 20-foot piece of pipe to take to a job. So it's all in what you do. A lot of pipeline trucks, they don't need nothing but a welding machine. So, but for when I originally rigged up this truck and several trucks before this truck, the reason that I was rigging it up and the work that I was planning on doing was serving the drilling industry. And this means doing fabrication and repair work on site, generally on drilling locations where they're drilling wells for natural gas. So one of the things about that's kind of known when I did it was I was going to have to haul some materials around. It was really helpful to be able to put material on an overhead rack on the truck. And another thing that if you do that kind of work is any rig that you go to, they've got compressed air. They've got more compressed air than you could ever dream of. So there's no sense having compressed air on a truck, which here within the last year, since I've been doing a lot of work outside of the drilling industry, I'm starting to get to where I would like to have compressed air. And that's something interesting to consider with this type of bed and this type of setup, because I run a Trailblazer 302 gas. This is a truck, or this is a weld machine from back when they had carburetors on them. I'm really agitated about what they've done with the new Trailblazers, where they flip the engine and the welding shit around backwards. It's kind of stupid what Miller's done with the new Trailblazers, because if you want your face of your welding machine to face your driver's side, like every welding truck I ever rigged up, your oil filter and fuel filter and things that you need to access would be against your cab. I don't know why they did that. I'm not going to buy one. I'm telling you that. I love this Trailblazer 302. I love it that it's got that 2-cylinder Kohler engine in it that's so common. I can go to Lowe's and Tractor Supply and stop about anywhere in any town and get any filter, spark plugs, whatever. And I haven't needed a whole lot because I haven't had much trouble with them. But one of the things about even in these years, if you were to get a Trailblazer that had the air pack, it would be a machine that's longer to where it won't fit in this bed. So that's something as far as an air pack welder, I'd have to do something, because I don't think there's any welding machine produced with an air compressor in it that's short enough to fit inside of these beds like this. So that's a note on that. I've used a lot of different types of reels. I'm really happy with these Reelcraft reels. My oxyacetylene, Stinger, and Ground here are all Reelcraft. This is an old Cox reel, and I had a couple of those, and I've had Cox reels for my torches that I think are absolute trash. I had a terrible amount of problems with Cox reels for oxyacetylene. I had trouble with Cox reels for the welding cables, and I've actually got a set that used to be on a truck. They're over there. I use them in the shop, and what I've done was I just ripped the guts out of the inside of them, and I connect them and disconnect them now with quick connectors instead of bothering with having the arc having the electricity powered through the reel like these. But it's really nice if it's powered through the reel, because, you know, if you're set up and you're welding and you need a few more feet, you can just pull on the cable and you're good. Now, if you got a quick connect on these, every time you spool up or spool out, you've got to go and disconnect it. And that's the way this power cord is. I've got to plug and unplug that every time I want to turn the reel. I got a TID weld for my potentiometer. And you can see I had a sticker made for it that matches up with my settings. So that's, you know, on a potentiometer, this is different than like a pipeliner that has a rheostat. There's more wires to a potentiometer. And there's 6 wires in this, because there's 3 wires that operate the potentiometer to adjust the heat of my weld machine, and then there's 3 wires for your 120 volt AC, because I've got those outlets on the box, you know, right there. I got those outlets where I can plug in tools or whatever, and I've got a magnet on the back of that, and it sticks there to it just sticks there to the rack when it's riding. This right here is to my cell phone booster, and I've got it in a pocket right here where it can come out, and I can put it up in that pocket to get it to go higher. And, you know, when I don't want to worry about it banging into stuff as much, I put it down there. And my antenna for my CB radio right here that's on that magnet, it's the same way. If my CB radio and my cell phone booster work fine with them like this, but if I'm in an area where I need more, I can take the cell antenna and I can put this in that pocket up there, and it'll reach out a little farther with less interference. And on the magnet there, I can set the CB, my CB antenna can go on top of the welder or on top of the cab, and it works a little bit better that way. Looking at the bed, this first box, pretty much the top box is all my torches, and the torches that I have are probably a little bit more critical because I don't have compressed air. I do have a carbon arc, and I used my carbon arc at the rigs quite a bit, but everywhere I would go at the rigs, they had compressed air. The other work I do, where I go somewhere and they don't have compressed air, I may have to do my gouging and stuff without a carbon arc or a plasma cutter. So doing everything with oxygen and acetylene, I have a lot of torches that are, you know, it's critical to have the one that I want, because I'm pretty particular about using the right torch for the right job. And I guess since I have so many, I'll probably just throw a table down and pull those out and go over that real quick. So I pulled these torches out where we can take a look at them. Standard Victor Journeyman with a 90-degree head. And this has a triple aught tip in it, really small, fine cutting tip. This is a straight head that'll go on the Journeyman there. And this straight head right now has a scarfing tip in it. The scarfing tip is, you know, that's what you'd use for gouging welds, cutting off bolts, maybe cut a nut off of a bolt, you know, cutting things off of other things without damaging a certain part. The scarfing tip is great for that. I carry 2 machine torches, and, you know, one of them will have a number 1 straight cutting tip in it. The other one's got a 30-degree. Now, these same machine torches will work in my track torch or in my beveling machines. And right now I don't have the beveling machines in the truck, but I have all the beveling machines to do pipe from 2-inch pipe to 20-inch. which is 3 machines. There's one that goes from 3 to 8 that I can put spacers in and use for 2-inch. So it's basically a 2 to 8. Then I've got a bigger machine that does flame beveling pipe from 6 to 12 inch. Then I have the biggest machine does 12 inch to 20 inch, depending on what spacers you're using in the machine. Now, I've had people say, why would you want a 30-degree tip? Because on your beveling machine, you can angle the head. Well, look, a lot of times when you're doing pipe fabrication on site, you'll be making some cuts that are beveled and some cuts that are not. So if you're loosening those wing nuts on your beveling machine and moving that constantly, it's a hassle. It's a lot easier if you're making a straight cut to just have a straight tip and then slide that one out and slide this one in when you want to make a 30-degree bevel cut. And that's what one of those 30-degree tips will do for you. Then I got a little bigger torch with the number 1 in it. And as far as tip sizes for cutting steel, I do virtually everything with either that triple aught or that number 1. Now, if you look at a chart from Victor, they're going to tell you need all these different tips and all this stuff. Yeah, whatever. That ain't how I do it. I will cut up to 3/8 inch plate with a triple aught, no problem. And probably start using my number 1 tip when I get to 1/2 inch plate, and I'll cut from there to infinity with a number 1 tip. I've cut flanges. I've cut flanges, made holes in flanges, made holes in flanges bigger on site when these flanges are 3 or 4 inches thick, and I've done it with a number 1 tip. You know, you just turn your pressures up and deal with it. Now, here's another larger straight torch, or 90-degree torch, but long shank torch with a scarfing tip in it. And that's another one. If you need a 90-degree, this is the same type of tip as this one. Cutting bolts, gouging out welds, cutting things apart when you got one part you're sacrificing and another you're saving. And this is a long straight one with a scarfing tip. A lot of welding tips and a rosebud. Don't use the welding tips a lot. Tend to arc weld a lot more than any flame welding, but you do braze something, I guess, here and there. Obviously, use a rosebud from time to time. I don't use a rosebud a lot. And if I really needed to use the rosebud a lot, I would probably have to get a short piece of hose. Now, I can run it off this rig, but it doesn't run great because my torch hose is so long. I think I've got about 150 to 180 feet of torch hose, and the last probably 50 feet of it is 3/16. So I've got a limited amount of flow when it comes to, really running a lot of oxyacetylene through. So I can do what I need to do with this setup to, heat up something and straighten it out or whatever, or maybe heat up something and bend it. But if you were really heating thick metal, what I would probably do is I would strip my 3/16 back until I got to the 1/4 inch hose, and that would shorten the length and increase the diameter, which would help to run something like a rosebud and get enough flow with that. Then that's pretty much the stuff that's on the top drawer in this thing. Second drawer, I've always got gloves, things to mark stuff with, caliper, some pipe wraps, clamps. These are jigs that I carry everywhere to burn holes. And as I make over the years, make different jigs to burn different holes. You would just, if you needed to cut a hole, you would just put this on your plate and you would clamp it. I'd clamp that down, and this is the way I prefer to burn holes. I know there's a lot of ways to do it, but I would blow through, and then I'd run my torch tip over here to the washer, and I would follow that around. And that for me is the most comfortable way. If you look at a jig like this one, you know, that one jig, it does a lot of different size holes, and this tray right here, it's got a bunch of different ones in it that I use that I've made over the years for different size holes. But the way it generally works out, which this is obviously not doing no machine work making holes, but it does do a nice job making holes. And generally, you're going to get a hole that you'll end up with a hole that's about 1/4 of an inch smaller than whatever you're following. And that just amounts to, you know, the difference in the amount that your torch tip is following inside and the kerf that's being removed. Different length tape measures. These are probably the Stanley Fat Max is my favorite tape. I love those in a 25 foot. I got a 100 footer. Obviously don't use that a lot, but you need to have one. I need to have one. Other things that we're looking at right here. There is an inverter in the bottom of this box, and it's connected to that set of power outlets right there. And the purpose for that and this auxiliary battery that's running that is I like to be able to charge the batteries for my cordless tools without my welding machine being run on fast idle. Even though these battery chargers don't suck a lot of juice, if you plug one of those into my welding machine, it'll kick it up on high idle, which is wasting a lot of fuel, you know, just to charge a battery. And a tiny little inverter like that 400 watt, I mean, it charges 2 or 3 of these batteries at a time, no problem. And it'll give it a little bit more life or run time if you've got an extra battery. And obviously, the way this is set up, this battery is connected to the battery on the welding machine. So when the welding machine's running, it's charging this battery. So that battery stays charged up. Now, what this is right here, this is something we talked about earlier. I've got that cell booster antenna there. This is my cell phone booster. And if you're not familiar with, I know probably in a lot of places you've got so many towers that you don't need a cell phone booster, but where I'm at in the center of the Appalachian Basin, you really do need a cell phone booster, because you'll get in areas where you can't get any signal. But the way it is now, if you have a cell phone booster, you have signal almost everywhere. And if you don't have decent signal, if you can get to the top of a hill with your booster, just go up the hill and wherever you're at, then you can usually get a good enough cell signal to make a call. And all this is, you know, these boosters, if you're not familiar with them, it's just a signal amplifier. And it really does boost your cell signal considerably. So that's the stuff that's going on in that box. I'll put the torches away and we'll move on. So this second box on the driver's side, not a lot of stuff in there I use a whole lot. Ratchet straps, rain gear, there's climbing gear, a harness. That was stuff I used to use a lot more than I do now when I was doing oil field service work, especially the 24-hour service work. A lot of times I'd have to climb up in the derrick and weld something, and you know, they make you tie off. You want to have a harness, and it's nice to have your own harness, because if they give you one and it doesn't fit you well, it makes it kind of suck. But there's a little map gas torch, light, ratchet straps, just some lubricants and basic stuff. You should carry a hatchet, you know, and the reason you need a hatchet like this, if you weld, particularly on drilling rigs, and this thing should be pretty sharp. Basically, if that drilling rig catches fire, I'm not wrapping my leads and hoses up and your welding cables, if you try to leave, could actually, cause a problem. If I've seen drilling rigs catch fire and burn, baby, burn, and it's not something you want to be anywhere near, but, if I could save my truck, I certainly would. So this hatchet is critical because, which it's not so much anymore because I don't do so much rig work. But if I was at a rig and the rig was on fire, I would literally chop my welding cables and my torch hose and shit off and get in that truck and go. And that's why I say that's critical to have there. In this next box on the driver's side, there's some knee pads in this bag. There's some hand tools there. My porter cable porter band is in the bottom. Face shield, an extra welding shield, my 8-inch Milwaukee dry cut saw. I've got a heat gun in. This isn't always there. It's there because some of the stuff I was doing, but in behind the 8-inch saw is my 7-inch grinder. I've got some pipe wrenches that ride in here. You don't need a whole lot of pipe wrenches, but it's nice to have an aluminum 24 rigid in there. Use that for a lot of different things. I use old school number 2 pencils. So, an old school pencil sharpener here inside the door is a nice thing to have. And this power cord, people notice that it's really big. I have a saw that's it's like a quickie saw type saw. It's very much built in the way that you see a lot of these engine drive saws. Some of them are 2-stroke. Mine's electric, but it's a 20 amp, 120 volt. So if you're going to run a 20 amp, 120 volt on a 100-foot cord, you've got to have this really big cord. Normally, if it wasn't for that one saw, which I probably don't need it because I don't use that saw that much, but if I want to use it, I run it off of that cord because it's hard on an electric motor if you don't run a big enough cord. So I guess that big cord's nice to have. Now, back here, I have this step that's pretty critical to get in and out. It makes it a lot easier to getting up in the back of the truck. And another thing, I really like the handles that I've got, these bars on the back of my truck rack. I grab a hold of those a lot. I have a set of outlets here that's connected to the welding machine. Things can be plugged in here at the back of the truck. I carry 2 oxygen, and the way I have my torches set up with my regulators, I haven't seen guys do this a lot, but if I'm in the heat of the moment and I'm working on something and I run out of oxygen or I run out of acetylene, I'm not one that really wants to stop and change the bottle if I can help it. And the way I've got my dual bottles connected together, if I'm running off of this bottle, I've got a regulator on both of them and they're teed together like this. If I'm running off of this bottle and I run out, I just shut that bottle off, turn that bottle on, and I'm back in business. And I actually could probably leave them both on. I don't do that because if one of them goes empty, I want to know it's empty. But my acetylene's hooked up the same way. And you see I have the 2 full-size tanks of oxygen. And the way I do with acetylene is I've got a big tank and a small one. And this small one functions as a reserve tank, meaning that I don't run this tank empty. What I generally do, I can usually run, especially if I'm doing cutting like with a triple-aught tip, I can run through a lot of bottles of oxygen before I run that big tank of acetylene out. Sometimes I'll go, I'd say between 4 and 6 tanks of oxygen before I run out of acetylene. But what I do is I run that acetylene till it goes empty. and I shut that off, and I'll turn this on. This is my reserve tank. I'll turn on, and I'll use that one to finish the job I'm doing that day. And then I'll get back to the shop and I'll replace that one. So this one is just what I use. This little tank is the acetylene that it's just my reserve, and that's all it is. So that's the way I do that. I've got an extra 100-foot cord right there. This aluminum box is a really big box, and this has been a box it's critical to have, I think, at least one lockable box that's pretty big. And I've done a lot of work on this one because it's pretty old. It's been on a couple trucks and whatever. When I'm doing oil field service work or anywhere that I'm dealing with pipe, my beveling machines would be in here, and the stuff that's in this box changes quite a bit, depending on what I'm doing. Usually, like I say, with oil field service work, my beveling machines would be in this box all the time. If I was doing some fabrication with smaller pipe, tubing, angle iron, flat bar, and I was wanting to use a saw like the DeWalt 872s I got, those saws are portable. You know, I can unplug that saw and it'll fit in this box if I wanted to take that with me. So that's another thing that you know, you could fit in a box this size. Now I always have this stub bucket. What this actually is, I built that bucket out of the running boards that were on my old brick nose Ford dually when I bought it. When I bought my 1988 F350 dually in 1999, it had aluminum running boards on the sides of it, and I cut those running boards up and made this box. And it's kind of my stub bucket. It's always got, you know, chip and hammer, welding rods, welding shield in it. Sometimes I'll put a few grinders in there. It's got this real good handle that works real good to pack it around. And it's pretty much always in here. Got to come along, bottle jack. This, you can get these at Lowe's, a little pad, put your knees on when you're working. That bag right there is actually tools for remodeling. That I'm doing some remodeling on a house I own, and got that in there. But a lot of different things end up being in that box. Now, this rubber that you see on the side of here, I don't have my 20-inch bevel machine obviously in place. It's in the tool room being stored. But when I take my 20-inch pipe bevel machine with me, it sets right up against here. The horseshoe of my, you know, the H&M horseshoe style bevelers, the horseshoe would set right here, and the neck sticks out right there, and I put that strap on it, and that's where that would ride when I'm carrying it. I haven't, you know, since I've been out, I haven't really done any oil field service work here in the last year or so. So I haven't used my 20-inch bevel machine very much. So moving on, we'll fold this up. The backup camera for the truck is right there. So this rear box on the drinker side, it's got welding rods in it, and that's pretty much all that's in it. I used to have the air compressor that I would use to add air to my airbags. It used to be mounted in this box. I took it out because I don't have to add air enough to even bother. These bags have been on this truck since I bought it. They're great. The airbags, absolutely. I'm tickled to death with them. And you think them airbags have been on there since 2014, and I only end up adding air to them maybe a couple times a year. It's not even enough that I need to have that compressor. I've got it set up now where I just sometimes at the shop, when I'm checking the tires, I'll put my air on there on that Schrader valve there, and add a little bit, but they don't leak enough that that I need to bother. So what's in here is these cans of welding rods. I like these cans. I carry a lot of different size rods, a lot of different types of rods, and that's what's in there. In this one here, there's wrenches and ratchets, drill bits, some mini pullers, clamps, punches, wedges, chisels, carry a splitting wedge, which you would think a splitting wedge would be something you'd use to split wood with, but these are great for you know, if you gotta build something to press something in place and it's taking a lot of force, you know, you can drive a wedge into your fabrication work and stuff too, and make shit happen with that. The front box here on the drinker's side, it's got this a lot of grinders and brushes. There's a drill back there. The drawer box, it's got miscellaneous stuff in it. The one part that I've had fail on a Trailblazer once was a fuel pump, so I carry an extra fuel pump, and I haven't needed it, thankfully, but it's there. Hand tools in here. This box mostly is stuff to mark with, marking tools and things of that nature. Screwdrivers. This is all the abrasives, grinding wheels, wire brushes, stuff like that. I didn't open this drawer back here, but I guess I could. The drawer box is where pretty much all my cordless stuff is. Grinders, drills, impact gun, cordless jigsaw, sawzall. This cordless die grinder comes in really handy, and like right now I've got a cordless hammer drill in here. You know, you wouldn't think you would use that for welding, and I don't, but I'm like doing some remodeling and different stuff on a house, so it's in there right now. All of my jack stands are in that basket, and that side basket has quite a few jack stands. I think there's 6 or 8 jack stands, the fold-up type, in the front right here. I've got my welding umbrella. The Pipeliner's Cloud umbrella is really good. Some people carry a couple of those. I only carry one, but I also carry a 10 by 10 tent canopy. There in that side basket. So I have the tent canopy and the Pipeliner's Cloud umbrella, and my hitch with the 3 different balls on it rides in that basket, and that basket's a pretty good thing for storage. So the truck, I run a 6.2 gas motor. Never have had a diesel truck. I considered a diesel whenever I was looking at buying this truck, and there's one thing I'm going to go into talking about a little bit that's going to probably, every time I talk about the DOT, there's a bunch of people that say a whole bunch of shit, and some of it's bullshit and whatever. Let me tell you the rundown. If the door tag on your truck, your GVW, this tag right here, you look at this tag right here on, you see where this says 10,000 pounds. Right here, the GVW of your truck. If that says 10,001 pounds or more, and you are operating in commerce, meaning you're being paid, then you're a truck driver. You are supposed to stop at the weigh stations. You should have a DOT number. You should have all of the things that are required for the federal DOT. Now, I understand that that's not enforced everywhere. As a matter of fact, if you talk to anybody from Texas, they'll tell you that it's not enforced in Texas. We've had times in West Virginia where it was heavily enforced. We've had times when it was ignored. But here's the thing. If that door tag says 10,000 pounds or less, and you own this truck, then the amount that this truck weighs is irrelevant. And you are not subject to the Federal Department of Transportation. You don't have to stop at weigh stations. You don't have to carry a medical card. You don't have to worry about any of that. If you want to make sure that you don't have to deal with the federal DOTs for any reason, if you can run a truck with a door tag that says 10,000 pounds, and you can operate your business without connecting that truck to a trailer, then you don't have to ever worry about stopping at weigh stations, carrying a medical card, running DOT numbers, or any of that. That is kind of something where it's been a factor for me, because over the years with welding trucks in the area that I was working, I got pulled over by DOTs. And they're like, where's your DOT numbers? So knowing that the way the law is, all I got to do is have a truck that's got the door tag says 10,000 pounds. I know I don't have to worry about that, the way the law is. Now, the other thing, or some of the things that I've learned about that, if you were to buy this exact truck, when I was shopping for this truck, if you were to buy this truck with a diesel engine instead of a gas engine, that door tag would say over 10,000 pounds. And that was kind of one of the factors that I had to consider. I do not regret for 1 minute, even if you forget about that, even if you forget about the door tag, even if you forget about the DOT, I do not regret the gas engine. I'm tickled to death with the 6.2 gas engine. It's got more than enough power. And I think the diesel trucks are just far too complicated with their turbos and their intercoolers and all the extra parts. I just don't think it's worth it. And especially nowadays, since you have to add diesel exhaust fluid. I am interested sorta in the new Fords with the 7.3 Godzilla gas engine, but at the same time, it's a brand new engine. You know, these 6.2s have been around a long time. So it's going to take us a while to see how good those 7.3s really are as far as longevity. Now this keypad on the door, that right there is a deal breaker for me. If I can't have that keypad on a vehicle, I'm not buying it. And if we ever see a day where the new vehicles don't have that feature or one just like it, then I'll continue to drive my old shit, because that keypad is absolutely one of the best features that have ever come out on a vehicle. You know, in the wintertime and even in the real heat of the summer, to know that I can, you know, I might have a pistol or something in the truck, maybe my wallet's in there, to know I can leave that running and walk up there. This truck is running. I hit those two buttons right there and lock that truck and walk away from it. You know, maybe I'm just going to run in and, you know, maybe I'm just going to walk 50 feet away from it or something, but I'm not comfortable to shut it off. Don't want to shut the truck off. And I'm not comfortable to leave it running with the keys in it. and unlocked. Well, I can lock it. And then, you know, I'm not going to show you my code, but if I come over here and I punch that code in, I can unlock my door, unlock both doors. You can't lock yourself out of the truck because of that key code. If somebody does, you know, my buddy's daughter, one time we were at the hunting camp, my buddy's daughter was using the cell phone booster in my truck, and she accidentally hit the thing on the door and locked my keys in my truck. But you can't lock me out of my truck because of that key code. That key code, it's... My wife had a 2012, I think it was, GMC Denali truck that I made her trade it basically over this. You know, she's got a 2020 Explorer now because I wanted to get a Ford that had that key code because I couldn't stand to not have that feature on the vehicle that she had. So this is the cab that I went with, and whenever... the day I brought this thing home from the Ford dealership, I removed the rear seats and I put this tarp over the backs of the rear seats, and it's been there ever since. It's been there for 8 years. And those rear seats have been in a trash bag stored for 8 years. I've never had any reason for anybody to sit back there, so there was no, you know, and the extra space I got by taking the seats out was great. Now, I understand a lot of people really like the full crew cab trucks. I do not. This cab with this back suicide door for me is absolutely the best. And probably the key component to that is, you know, when I come up to my truck, you know, when I'm working, this is what I do. There, you know, I'm opened up. Here's my cab. This is my stuff. This is my office. You know, if I'm out on site, this is my office. Basically, I walk up to this truck. Anything I want out of the front, I can reach with this hand. Anything I want out of the back, I can reach with this hand. Now, my wife, when she had that Denali with the crew, you know, the full crew, we had stuff in the back of the truck all the time. And what I noticed was, even when I was here at the driver's door, and I wanted something out of the back, well, it was kind of hard to reach it, you know, over the seat or whatever. Well, you would either open that door like this and walk all the way around the door to get what you wanted, or you would walk all the way to the end of the cab of the truck and open the door. It's just not convenient. This right here, this is, for what I do, this is the most convenient setup. So I'm a big fan of this type of cab, and the backwards door is great. This truck's a Lariat. The only thing that I didn't get on it when I got it was the navigation. I have the same big screen and, you know, all of that, but I didn't get the nav. And the salesman, talking to the salesman, when I told him how I use the GPS unit, and I had a lot of places I go, especially at the time, I had a lot of well sites saved into my GPS unit. I was telling him about that, and he was saying, well, maybe you should just keep using the GPS instead of the nav, instead of getting the nav, because you've already got that all saved in there. Because I was asking him, like, you know, if I've got 100 well pads saved in my GPS, how would I get that logged into the nav? And he was saying, you know, maybe you should just stick with that. So I did, and I didn't get the actual navigation. But one of the great features in this cab is these switches, and these switches there's wires, 4 wires, you know, under the dash here that are connected to these factory switches, but none of those have power until you turn the truck on, you know, until you turn the key on. Like as of right now, those don't have any power. If I turn the key on, now they have power, and you probably can't see it very good. I've got these labeled. I guess you can see that. This one that says charge welder is connected to a solenoid switch that connects my truck battery to my welder battery. And the reason that that's important is because when I shut my truck off, my welder battery and my truck battery are separated. That means that the welder battery or the truck battery could go completely dead and I would still have a live battery. You wouldn't want those two connected all the time, because if one of them goes bad, it's going to kill the other one and then you're stranded. So this is on that switch where if I want them connected, they're either going to be connected when this is in the on position and I've got the truck key on, or I can disconnect them by turning that off. This switch right here that goes to my cell signal booster, that's where I can turn that on and off. This one goes to my CB radio, and my CB radio, I sacrificed my visor to put in my Cobra 29 CB radio. I really like this location. Mike's easy to get a hold of on this reel that I've got it cabled to, and with the speaker right here I can hear it really well. And then the one drawback I've always thought of with the Cobra 29s is every time you turn it on and off, you have to reset the volume. And I've always hated that. So the way this is connected to this switch, if I'm, like, say I'm talking on the cell phone and people start yakking on the radio and I don't want to hear the CB radio, see, I can just reach down and just kill the power to that CB and it's off now. So, if I was talking on my cell phone and I wanted the CB off, I don't have to readjust the volume now when I turn that back on. I just turn the switch back on. So I've left my volume set where I wanted it. And then this power outlet right here for 12 volt DC is on this switch with my GPS, which is right here, and my radar detector, which is up here. And obviously, I might have a time where I'm driving the speed limit, don't necessarily need the radar detector, but I might be talking on the CB radio or talking on the cell phone. And this thing, if there's a lot of law around and this radar detector's going off like crazy and I don't want to hear it beeping, then I can just reach down here and kill that. And that'll be off. And then, I can flip it back on, which normally I leave them on all the time. And that way, whenever I turn the keys on to the truck, those items they get power. But the second I shut the truck off, they're off. So I'm not concerned about unnecessarily drawing power that way. The overhead rack on the truck, I think, is a necessity. I really use that a lot. And getting back to what I was talking about with the door tag saying 10,000 pounds or less, and that making it so that I don't need DOT numbers. If you want to run a truck as a welding truck that has a door tag that says over 10,000 pounds, there's a few things you can do so that you don't have to have DOT numbers. One thing I'll tell you is if you're a pipeline welder, you don't need it, because the 798 union has already dealt with that and got a thing put in so that if you're a pipeline welder, you don't need DOT numbers. It would be hard if you're not a pipeline welder to try to tell them you are. I don't know if you could get away with that or not. But one thing you could do is do not put your business name on your truck. That would be a big help. If you want to run a welding truck with a door tag that says 12,000 pounds or whatever, more than 10, and you want to run that welding truck and you don't want to get DOT numbers, definitely do not put your business name on your truck, because the whole thing is about operating in commerce. If you own that truck, and you are not making money, then you can drive that truck wherever you want. So don't put your business name on your truck. Another thing that you should consider is, even if you are working and you have your door tag says over 10,000 pounds and you're rigged up as a welding truck, if you're working and you get pulled over, I would not admit that you're working. That if that's your truck and you're going to get ice cream, then you're not operating in commerce. But if you're pulled over by a DOT official and you tell him you're going to or coming from work, and he can somehow connect that and say that you are operating in commerce, meaning you're making money, then you could have a problem there. I want to have the business name on my truck. I've proven to myself that there's no reason to run a truck with a GVW over 10,000 pounds. I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, I've gone down the road with over a ton of steel on my overhead rack, with this truck weighing 12,000 by itself, and up to 14,000 with the ton of steel on the overhead rack, and I'm perfectly legal. Because that door tag says 10,000 pounds, if I want to overload my personal truck, that's not the DOT's problem. Now, if I was driving down the road at 14,000 pounds and I have an accident, I'm probably going to have a little bit more than your normal amount of problem, especially if somebody got hurt. That's a risk I'm taking. But the fact is that if that door tag says 10,000 pound or less, it's not within the DOT's jurisdiction. Exactly. And that 10,000 pound thing and the operating in commerce thing, it's not a state to state thing. That is federal. So just something for you to consider. There's thousands upon thousands of welding trucks going up and down the road that don't have DOT numbers that probably should. If you do want to pull a trailer, or you want to put your business name on there, or you just don't want to worry about it and you want to get the DOT numbers, it's really not that big a deal. You can go get the medical card and get it all together and get your DOT number on there and whatever. I actually in 2011 I got DOT numbers on the 2010 GMC that I was running, because I got tired of being pulled over by the DOT. And I was being pulled over actually wrongly, because my truck was not over 10,000 pounds. And of course they had to let me go because my truck wasn't over 10,000 pounds. But I got tired of being pulled over. So I went ahead, I said, hell with it. I'll go ahead and get the DOT numbers. So I got my medical card, got my DOT numbers. And what happened was, about 3 months or 4 months after I got my DOT numbers, they did what they call a DOT audit on me. And they sent a federal DOT official to my shop to audit my DOT truck. So I had everything ready. I had my medical card, I had my DOT numbers on the side of the truck. I had my orange triangles and my fire extinguishers and everything I'm supposed to have. And the guy, this federal DOT official, he shows up at my shop. And he looks at my truck. And he opened the door. And he looked inside. He said, "Do you pull a trailer with this truck for your business?" I said, "No, sir. If I need to haul something, I put it on the overhead rack." He said, "Why do you have DOT numbers?" I said, "Well, I'm tired of getting pulled over by people, DOTs and state police, telling me I need DOT numbers when I know I don't. But I just got tired of getting pulled over." He said, "This is the 4th time this week that I've went to do an audit on a truck that shouldn't even have DOT numbers on it. If your truck has a tag," he told me this. He said, "if your door tag says 10,000 pounds or less, and you don't pull a trailer, and you own that truck, you shouldn't have the DOT numbers." So I took them off, and I don't deal with it anymore. I don't worry about stopping at weigh stations. I don't need it. And I think, hopefully word has got out from that happening so much. And I think the DOTs are at a point now where they don't pull people over for that as much as they used to, but they can. The law hasn't been changed. If your door tag is 10,001 pounds or more, and you are operating in commerce, then you should be running DOT numbers and stopping at the weigh stations and everything. So that's a look over the truck. Gives a pretty good idea the way I'm set up. I really enjoy seeing the rigs and the stuff. For a lot of other guys I've got to see videos. I see Weld did a rig tour not long ago. That was really cool. So got that done, and you guys have a good one.